What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Christian Hanna Horror here today with a slightly different kind of video. Robocop. Not a horror movie, right? More of a action sci-fi kind of movie. But there's something about Robocop that I've been subconsciously thinking about, and it's about time for me to actually bring this up to you guys so we can discuss it and try to see if we're on the same wavelength with this. What is it about Robocop that makes me feel like it's got some relation to a horror movie? You know, it's something that's been in my brain subconsciously, but I never stop and say out loud to myself, Christian, why is it that you feel like Robocop feels like somewhat of a horror movie? You know, when I rewatched Robocop last week. I brought this up to my wife, and we kind of talked about why we felt that way. And, you know, upon this discussion I had, I also noticed that Scream Factory, not Shout Factory, but Scream Factory put out Robocop 2 and 3. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So maybe there's a bit more to this than just what I'm thinking. And when I rewatched the first Robocop, I started saying to myself, you know what, I think I see why. You know, what Robocop is a science fiction, action, adventure movie. But the way it approaches its violence and gore is what feels like so much of a horror movie to me. Some of it's really, really like a horror movie. You know, for instance, when Peter Weller's character gets locked in that plant, when Clarence Bodiger's crew is getting ready to kill him, the special makeup effects look like it's something out of a Tom Savini movie. You know, when they blow his hand off, boom, his hand goes off and there's blood gushing everywhere. It's horrifying stuff. And then when they just, dismantle him and they're shooting him and the blood's pouring out of him, there's a big difference between something like that and then watching something like somebody dying in, True Lies or Die Hard. Those movies really meet you halfway with their gore for the most part. But Robocop is different. Robocop is very brutal and very like a sadistic kind of violence in the movie. One of the biggest examples of what makes me feel like it's got some kind of horror appeal to it is the character of Emil. When he is driving that truck into that big toxic waste bin at the end of the movie when they're back at the plant. And he comes out and he's zombified and he's nasty looking and he's crawling around and he's breathing real hard and heavy. If I had never seen Robocop before and I turned that movie on and I saw it, I would immediately think I'm watching some kind of, apocalyptic zombie movie. And incredible imagery in the movie. I really should have looked up the history of the director of Robocop. I wonder if he had ever done a horror movie before. It's going to be interesting to see what his films were that he's also done besides Robocop. I'm sure you guys can supply some of these as well to me. But it's not necessarily just the first one. It's the rest of the movies. Two specifically. Kaylin was telling me that, if you go and you watch 2 again, the character of Cain, he's so sadistic and evil. Especially the scene where they take that cop who was feeding him all the information and then they gut him through his chest with that blade. I mean, it's something like out of a Friday the 13th movie. It's just brutal and horrifying. And I think that's why, a lot of horror fans can get enjoyment out of these Robocop films. It's interesting because I never really seen too many horror fans. I really can't think of one right now off my mind anyway that, didn't say they enjoy the Robocop series. And it's interesting. I don't know what it was at first. I'm a horror fanatic. I also like some action movies. Some off the wall action movies recently that I've enjoyed was a movie called Speed. I finally got around to seeing that with Keanu Reeves. Had a blast with it. But I'm very picky with my action movies. And when you watch something like Robocop, it's almost like, hey, let's meet you halfway. Let's get you a little bit out of horror and get you into a science fiction action, boom, boom, boom. But the gore will satisfy your needs for a horror fan. Maybe you guys feel this way too. I don't know, or if it's just me. But I did find it interesting that Scream Factory, not Shout Factory, but Scream Factory, put out the Robocop sequels on their Blu-ray line. When I rewatched the series, it's really more so 1 and 2, not so much 3. But the first 2, the way they approach their gore and violence it's almost like set up like kills in a horror movie. And then just the pure gore of the movies themselves. You've even got some fun setup characters like you would in a horror movie in the Robocop franchise. Maybe you guys think the same way as me. I don't know. But like I said, I've never really seen a horror fan not be a Robocop fan. And I think Robocop is one of those great franchises. And it's, I think what sets it apart from a lot of action sci-fi franchises, action movies, is the way it approaches its violence. Like I said, there's a big difference between watching, you know, a Die Hard kill sequence or somebody dying in Die Hard or True Lies or even Rambo to a certain extent than going and watch, you know, Robocop. You know, it's very brutal and violent, but it's a, you know, a slasher, sadistic type way. Even some of the stuff with Ed 209, even though, like, that guy, the Ed 209 is blasting that one guy in the suite where Connell Cochran, the old man, is holding that meeting, just the way he is blowing up and the blood's coming out of him, it's so horror-like, you know? It's really cool stuff, and I really just wanted to open up this discussion with you guys to see if you're thinking the same thing I do. And I couldn't help myself when I was putting my movies up here. I had to put my Robocop 2 VHS in here with the horror movies. It just felt right. So it's one of those subconscious things that I've never really talked about out loud before, but I think it's now time to, you know, finally bring this up to you guys and see where your guys' headspace is at with all this. Like I said, it'd be interesting to find out the history of the director of Robocop and see what other movies he's done, because I would not be surprised if he had done some horror movies. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I'll have to find out after this video. But that really wasn't the point of this video. I wasn't necessarily wanting to prove it. I just wanted to see where you know, your guys' headspace is on this along with mine. So, I don't know, fun little video. Maybe we can open up a discussion about this in the comment section, but something to think about. So, if you haven't seen Robocop in a while, give it a shot and see if you kind of get what I'm getting at. If you're picking up what I'm putting down type thing. So, that'll be it for today, guys. Christian out of horror here, just with a different video, but I wanted to discuss this with you guys. So, if you enjoy this kind of video, please be sure to give me a subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to hit that bell to be notified so you'll never miss a video again. We're going to travel through the 90s. We just got done with 90, heading to 91. But for now, let's talk about Robocop. Drop your comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Until next time, we'll see you later.